What's good, y'all? We back.
We are back on Willows Bloom and
The Infinite Salt, Ricardo.
And we're here today to talk about the very special and rare transit of Jupiter conjuncting Neptune, which only happens.
I'm getting excited.
It only happens every 13 years, but in the sign of Pisces, which both of them rule. This is a very rare thing that hasn't happened since 1856. So we're very excited to dive into this one today.
This is one of the biggest transits of 2022. And like Courtney just said, since 1856, I believe, is when the last conjunction was exactly. We haven't seen this for a long time. And totally excited that, we could take one of these biggest transits to make some of our greatest dreams a reality and maybe get to connect with God and Source more than we ever have. But huge, big time in less than a month, and probably in just a few moments. We only get one on this one, folks, and it's definitely best advised to be prepared in alignment for what is to come. So.
And as I mentioned, the last time these planets were conjunct in the sign of Pisces, which is all about dreams, was in 1856, and Freud was born that year, Sigmund Freud, and he's all about psychology and dreams and the hidden human desires and hidden human nature. So I think just looking at kind of his life, we can get an idea of what this aspect even means today. So we're going to be feeling this right now, but we will also be feeling it even more when it goes exact on April 12th. And I think we're really going to be feeling it all the way until mid-May of this year. Right.
To break this down is that Neptune and Jupiter are both the rulers of Pisces. We look at, in my opinion, is Jupiter is the ancient ruler and Neptune is the modern ruler. And so when they're coming together in Pisces, we haven't really been able to, we've only seen this one other time, and to be conscious of it, might have been one of the first times, if not the second. This is a once in a lifetime transit that you're going to experience with the two rulers here. And so we're going to be feeling it for most of April. It's happening pretty much of April 1st. For the most part, they're about a degree away. April 8th is where they're pretty much in the same degree. And like Courtney said, April 12th is where we're getting this exact alignment. And it will retrograde, but it's not going to come over Neptune again. This is the only one that we are going to experience. So.
And the last time this happened in 1856, I just wanted to mention two things that went on historically at that time to give context to kind of what might happen again. So first of all, Russia signed the Treaty of Paris, ending the Crimean, I don't know if I'm saying that right, war.
Crimea.
And then the Second Opium War began. So
that makes sense. That's crazy.
Okay. Very literal, because Neptune and its Pisces are both associated with drugs. So
addictions, some conscious patterns and stuff.
Medication as well. It doesn't have to be
right.
Drugs. But there can be kind of a resurgence of that. I mean, we're already seeing fentanyl, just crazy amount of deaths from that. Even people I've heard stories of people just lighting up a joint to smoke and it was laced with fentanyl and they're dying, which I don't even understand. But just people, being affected by drugs in a profound way that I think we haven't seen in a while. People have always been affected by drugs, but This is actually becoming an issue. And so that could be something that is exacerbated during this time, because Jupiter is a planet of exaggeration and enlargement. And so that could be a little bit of an issue. But what really good news is that in this, historically, Russia did sign that Treaty of Paris. And so, I mean, it's funny that's involving Russia again. We might see some kind
again. They are. That's hilarious.
We might see some kind of peaceful resolution, which I think will be on the back of some kind of fight or turmoil with Mars conjunct Saturn, which we talked about in the previous video.
I'd like to go over a little bit of how we can understand the energies of Neptune. Neptune had used to be the most difficult thing to describe to someone in astrology. And to break this down is Neptune rules anything that can touch the soul. But if you want to get down to the way of life this works, it deals, in my opinion, with just inevitable erosion. If you're walking footprints on the beach, pretty soon you're going to have some of your footprints washed away as if just never to be have happened within the ocean. And Neptune also has the glyph of the trident, but we also look at it as the vastest ocean. It is the experience of being in a rowboat literally in the middle of the ocean with really no sense of genuine direction other than intuitive guiding system to know where we're here to go. And so it touches the soul. Sometimes it's those moments, though, to look at what is real and what is fantasy. Is this illusion, or is my soul in a weird complexity guiding me to where I know I need to go? And the last little couple things with Neptune, though, is like, this is where there's inexhaustible inspiration. It literally can represent infinity. And when you add Jupiter with there, we're hitting like the infinity vastness of all imagination matrix. Like, it literally doesn't get more infinite than this, to almost a swarming level. It's imagining being lost out in space where the closest thing to you is almost 50 years at light speed. It is so vast. It can be daunting. And something to know about Neptune, though, is like when you think, and I've noticed this with squares and trines, that like Neptune, you think it's going to be good, but it can also be bad. And when you think it's going to be bad, it's holy grail good. Like, you know, it's something where like Neptune is rewashing your soul on how it experiences life. And when we, and to close that before moving to Jupiter, is just something that like all the poetry, all those moments of soul actualization and story structure that happen in cinema, poetry, music, you name it, is these elements where Neptune really touches our heart and soul and inspires us to where the soul can connect to next. So,
and I like that because, as you mentioned, these planets only conjunct every 13 years, and Jupiter, being a social planet, has a heavy influence on what we are doing as a society. And also it's infusing its own meaning in there with what direction are we moving in that is in line with our morals, with our integrity, with our vision of how we want to uphold ourselves. And then we're mixing in Neptune's energy of creativity and vision and imagination and dreams and fantasy. And so we can see a lot of creative movements coming to pass every 13 years. And so we can definitely see, like he was mentioning, a lot of inspiration and creative redirections or things that come out that have a stamp of influence over the next 13 years. Like, this is what the new style of music is going to be, or this is what the new poetry is going to be. If it's, you know, maybe it's back in fashion, you know, maybe not that in particular, but that could be an example of something that would happen.
But Courtney's right, because it's starting a new cycle. One thing also to remember about Jupiter, and we'll do a rundown with Jupiter, but it's also a point of your perspective. We're all living and experiencing, expanding a form of perspective. And so when this gets illuminated on the higher mind to really connect into Neptune's perspective, this can reopen and almost have a distinctive breakthrough in the way that we've ever seen the way that things can be connected with. One thing to also represent, as much as beautiful as that is for Neptune, I really think Neptune's very beautiful. It also can be a very big malefic when not understood how it is operating too, because, you know, it can rule psychological disorders, the abuse of drugs, being jails and hospitals, and being stuck in some kind of confinement where I don't understand how to get out, and have not listened to this kind of intuitive spark, this like calling, so to speak. You know, you don't want to get lost in the ocean of Neptune, where people have put themselves in many different ways. There's a way to use this in a very constructive manner.
Yeah, because Neptune is our way of, as you were mentioning, connecting to the soul and really connecting to something larger than us. So the divine. So what happens when we don't know how to do that in a healthy way? We tend to find unhealthy ways. We tend to turn to drugs, turn to, you know, like escapist tendencies, because we want to connect to that feeling that we can get only through maybe meditation or prayer or whatever kind of holy experience as a soul that we desire. And so whenever Jupiter is there, I think it's trying to help us come back to, again, what is the moral or the healthy way of doing this. But it also if we are tapping into it, can be in the lower octaves of Neptune and Jupiter can just expand upon the already existing problems. And so this can be this come to Jesus moment, or this can be, this falling down into the depths of psychosis and despair and abuse, drug abuse and things like this. So there's a lot of ways that this can manifest. And I think that hopefully in Pisces, hopefully a lot of us will be able to tap into the higher octave of what this could mean.
Definitely, there's so many things that are going to happen with this, but Jupiter is in that rulership too in Pisces. I look at it as more the feminine approach, where Sag, the other ruler, would be more of a masculine approach, kind of with religion and dedication. But when we're here in Pisces, we're really being access to source consciousness. And so there's a little bit of a surrender. There's a little bit of unknowingness of how it's going to work, but it's like that point where in certain books like The Alchemist or certain movies where we need to go off our intuitive gut, listen to spirit, this is, and in the sign of Pisces, can be very Jesus-like energy to like how we connect to this like higher element of what God's telling me to connect with. So the biggest thing is to keep it can be almost illuminating and radically inspiring, but in that inexhaustible moment, how are you going to use this? To be honest, I look at this as one of the greatest moments where your dreams have this fulcrum, this certain perspective within Jupiter to expand it and make it more real of an experience than ever. It's just making sure that you stay on ground, which we're going to get into, about where we get pivoted. So we're not out there seeking a mirage. We're out there seeing it fruition through our very eyes, and that inspiration lets it materialize that can touch our soul in ways we've never experienced. And in the sign of Pisces, in the third decan, trining these nodes, sextiling the North Node, this is huge. This is huge. This is an angelic moment in very many ways. So.
Yeah, and I do think it's a really powerful conjunction for manifestation. And if we look also at the Sabian symbols for 23 degrees of Pisces, we can kind of see that. It's a materializing medium giving a seance. And basically how the person was describing this on the website that I was reading was talking about how we are picking up on very subtle shifts in energy, so very psychic energy. And then we are taking that and making it into something real. We are channeling spirit and materializing it into this earth, giving voice to the spirit realm, giving voice to our deepest desires, which comes from the spirit realm. And so that is the very act of manifestation, when we sit and we visualize or we bring to life a concept or an idea that was once in the ether. That is kind of what's happening at this conjunction. So very, very powerful stuff to be journaling about what you want, to get super clear on how you want to move forward in a certain area of your life. And later on in the video, we're going to break down in what house this is happening for your rising sign. So that can kind of give you a clue where you're getting this spiritual guidance and support at this time.
I want to talk about this briefly, but we just had all the planets, as you're watching this video, just pass in through the Pisces season, and now we're in the Aries season. So is really it. We've already been given the messages for most of these about what our soul wants, and I really want that to be taken to heart. What do your angels want? What is almost like maybe your ancestors want for you that you can actually connect with? These are big, holy, matrimony-like dreams to connecting to what is life going to be for you in some way. And believing that those are possible is the thing that I've been preaching the most here, because now when we come into the Aries season, this is something that we're really being able to now embody and own, but making sure that we bring that soul, divine compassion into the archetype of what kind of egoic personality or identity that we're here to bring out into the world. You know, if with a sloppiness in this, you can get lost in that Pisces energy and you're just out in the ocean, and sometimes it's panic, sometimes it's laughter, sometimes it's a little manic, you know, but like you want to really be able to connect to like that angelic calling where then you find like something was there all along. It's those little moments in life that speak of magic where it's like, wait a minute, you have the same birthday as this person, and like I'm making this up, but it's like two people had kids and like your best friend's son or daughter has the same birthday as your son and daughter, and it's like one of those boom boom, but it's like, is these moments where that actually is real. That's not an illusion. Those little moments happened, and those are things I want to kind of remind people to be open to those moments within this creative time. This is like very allowing the majesty of Van Gogh to kind of flow through you and let the angels, and it's really angelic, guide you to a form of your destiny. It's with the nodes on this one. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying about that, and the idea of your creative inspiration likely has already been established. So you kind of already know what spirit wants you to manifest in this world. And the thing is, this conjunction actually makes it possible. Over the next 13 years, you can see that vision evolve. And if we look back to the one, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction that happened in 2009, that was a time during the global financial crisis, really challenging time economically. But guess what was born during that time? Bitcoin. And so if you can start to see like how these crazy visions, things that people would tell you you're insane for back in 2009, they're now really taking hold because, you know, it's come full circle. It's been the full cycle. So now that thing that was created then is in use today, is growing today in a really surreal way. And so we have this potential for whatever we are putting pen to paper on right now, whatever we are visualizing and putting our intention into, that has a potential to grow into something in use or substantial or real in the next 13 years.
There's something very finite here, though, because when that happened in the sign of Aquarius, which probably created something electronical, forward-thinking, that was almost an intention for the future that could be a tool to work. And people didn't understand that in the Jupiter-Neptune world. It was almost inconceivable. It was almost like something you couldn't even grasp as a concept. But when it's in Pisces, it's getting more energy with Neptune here in rulership than it was in Aquarius. And so this could be something that can touch. It's really deeply spiritually compassionate. You know, this is where there might be deep cycles. Maybe if we're going to go here in a like meta talk, past life things that we've been dealing with of cycles and subconscious patternings that might reach a miracle like resolution within these periods of time. That we're actually breaking through to something that opens up our vision and almost like wipes our eyes to see that has become a reality and that's becoming a vision that I can connect with. At the same time, as beautiful and majestic as that is, it's also making sure, because I won't lie, I could see the inflation of reality and potential helplessness also grow within this time too, that helps us counteract to coming to that vibrational state, if that makes sense.
That is literally what I was just going to talk about. And so I appreciate you so much, Ricky, because I was just thinking about that. You know, what caused the creation of Bitcoin? The financial collapse and the feeling that the current way of doing things wasn't sustainable in our way of producing money and distributing money. So what we typically see around the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction or even preceding it is this time of confusion, this time of lack of clarity about how we're going to move forward. What is the way out of this? You know, this financial crisis that we are now re-experiencing, and the inflation and the lack of goods and all this stuff. Like we're really just out here in the middle of nowhere, not knowing where the F we're going. And Jupiter and Neptune comes along as this beacon, also creating the confusion, but at the same time, on top of creating the confusion, because that's what Neptune does, it's also giving us the spiritual solution. It's like the weirdest thing, you know? It's like you have to have the fog to turn within to realize certain dreams and ideas that you never would have had if you had your eyes to see forward and not within. And so very weird time, but also a very powerful time.
Totally agree with that. It's like, you know, if you'd lived everything just basic and grounded and brought like there was no ebb and flow in life, you probably wouldn't really have too much understanding what spirit, God, and connection to like what you can find compassion for your life really comes when we can reach different vibrational depths within ourselves and other people. It's usually when people have been brought to their knees and they know what it's like to be starving, so to speak, is where someone really has the compassion to give someone money where they've been starving before, kind of that kind of theme, if you will. And to have compassion for the world and for people, this is at max level here. I don't know. This is the most Pisces wash of elevated frequency we're going to get in our lives and at this point. And some could say, and I want to say this, is I think this is also going to bring a big pivot for our age of Pisces that is actually starting to come to a close right here. And this is kind of our last big looking at what has brought us into connection with spirit and God and see what is real and what isn't. But like realizing when some things show up that are very real, they're almost like wake up, consciousness heavy, like a tsunami of just energy that I see is like riveting through people's souls and hearts that they couldn't believe what was there. It's that riveting moment in the movie that you almost can't even believe your eyes is what some of this vibration is speaking into, at least. And so, I can't really say if all that's potentially going to be happening for people, but with the chaos that illuminates in the world, it seems to get wilder. And with this situation, also inflation can really hit a big point of like, what is value? What is currency? What is really tangible is going to really be coming up. And it's really advised to like have a practical foot on the ground while being able to listen to that intuitive little whistle, listen to that little voice. And like, if it's your angels or whatever that calls to you, that's really moving to a new dominion. And so there's where we want to paint our dreams into reality. And whatever along in that journey we come across, these are these like coming to spirit, coming to God moments. And I use the alchemist as an example because like, you realize that sometimes that gift was with you all along in some majestic story structure that hits your soul in a way that's never been hit before. And these are those moments that can almost be unreal, divine, and it's like biblical in some ways. So there's a lot of the themes that we're going to be understanding and experiencing. And if there's some psychological trauma that someone's been in a very big cycle, big heavy cycle, this is the moment where it's going to want to be purged and really brought back to source. And it's deteriorating. Let's remember, Neptune starts eroding, washing, purging, not as purge, but cleansing stuff of the past. It's like where the wounds have actually been able to heal when you couldn't see that in that moment. You couldn't believe that those elements were given that kind of essence. And if you go look at some of the most majestic places on Earth, sometimes erosion has also created one of the most beautiful things we've ever seen, or waterfalls, and so many elements of life can be really seen. So like, will there be somewhat chaos? Maybe, but it's also having that discernment to know in these times, if you're watching this video, to navigate best within this kind of holy waterfall kind of vibe, like,
Yeah, so I think that this could be a time of miracles, and it can also be a time of delusion. And what's really common to come up right now is these kind of like fanatical ideologies that people buy into, usually from like a source, like a leader, because Jupiter very much represents like the teacher. So there can often be someone that like steps up, like let's say, for example, Putin right now. Like, let's just say he steps up and starts ranting about certain ideologies he has for this perfect future, kind of like a Hitler vibe, like that could be something that people get swept up in, this kind of losing your own mind because of this ideology or this collective mind that's kind of forming around you. And so it can be easy to lose yourself in certain ideas or fantasies or visions. And so while this is a time for miracles where you can truly bring things into reality, it is also a time in which you could overly attach yourself to things that are unrealistic or that aren't going to happen. And so it's a fine line to kind of walk in between how can this miracle happen? How can I bring this manifestation to life versus am I being stuck in this like delusion or this fantasy of something rather than the realness? And I think the only thing that can truly guide you for something like this is your connection to it intuitively. What is spirit or divine speaking to you? Because it can feel sometimes like it is spirit or divine speaking to you when it's something that you want, or when it's something that someone is really saying in a really persuasive way. But it's not actually that. And so I think that this is one of the most important times to really tap into what your gut is telling you, because even if you think that something's really great, it might be too good to be true. It might not pan out as the best solution. Like, it might be presented as the best and perfect solution for this problem. And then we see like a few years later that it actually maybe created its own issues, and that it didn't really solve the problem. It just kind of moved it to a different area. And so this is something to consider in your life.
This is the hardest thing to kind of convey sometimes, but like Neptune actually usually puts you on the track that you're meant to be on. It just won't look maybe to what your ego wants it to look like. And here we are with a new moon on Chiron with Aries. And so sometimes it's like, really? Like, God, why'd you bring me to this point? Like, it's that kind of, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. But, when I've looked at the Neptune transit for me in Pisces, it has put me on such a journey of things to listening to my own internal spirit that, to be honest, the value and the wisdom in some places that it's taken me are unbelievable. And you got to accept that for where it is. But Courtney's definitely right with that, because like, you don't want to be in this time where like, and I'm not invalidating anyone's spiritual connection or psychic energies, that I've experienced some interesting stuff out here in life. But when we're over devising and co-creating a part of me is not the word. It's you're almost fabricating something that's not there to escape reality. And that's where Pisces is not a fun place to be. You don't want to be in realizing an entire situation has been fabricated out of really nothing. You can't touch it tangible and be with it, which is something that is maybe driving us from South Node Scorpio, which will be more trined with Neptune. And to be honest with you, there's two things to look at this. If you're falling into hopeless despair at this situation, you need to recognize that there's way more opportunities around you than you're giving yourself grace to understand. And that's coming from something that this South Node Scorpio is trying to purge and clarify. But the North Node that's in Taurus also with this is also like, what can you really vision that can be really real? Like, you can touch it, be with it. It can be a part of your life. And something about Chiron and Aries is coming up to let you all know it won't be the idealistic, heavenly, perfect image, because your conception or perception of heaven might get altered in this moment. With Jupiter being part of your perspective, part of your lens, the higher accord of your mind in connection to source, big words, big meta talk here. These are moments where you might redistinguish on like, this is beautiful, this is great and holy and one of a kind as it is, but it might not be like so of essence dream and unicorns out of the sky kind of thing, that like it's everything that you think is supposed to happen, because it might not be to what your soul needs. These are like really big, out there, almost difficult questions to answer. And one last little thing I feel like called to draw upon with that is that we will have Venus coming into Pisces during this time too. So we don't just got Neptune and Jupiter. I don't want to get ahead of the game, but like, we also get Venus, which is exalted here, to even touch upon it with extra beauty, which, to be honest, is like, holy moly, magical. The only thing is, with all the planets direct, it is something for us to move forward into like, what dreams can we materialize that really touch our soul, that become our story, that become literally in essence where we create our heaven here and accept it for the humanness that it is, versus like, just what Courtney's saying is create this over ideological moment, and God forbid inflation or something else happens and you're there and you've been like almost running into the desert and you don't know that you're out of water, and you're not going off the deeper layers of your intuitive guidance system. You're just going to fix some deeper psychological situation that Jupiter and Neptune is trying to wash. It's trying to wash that pain away.
So I think that
that was a lot. Yeah.
I think that one of the planets to really lean on right now is Saturn, being practical, being grounded, while also embodying the miracle and the vision that you have. So don't get so Saturn that you don't allow yourself to dream, because this is the aspect of dreaming. Dreams can come true. But like he was saying, you wouldn't really just run out and imagine watching a movie and you have this one person who's like, yes, we're going to go to America. This is the gold rush. We're going to go and be super rich. All these things are going to work out and we're just going to have the best time. And you know history, so you already kind of know what's going to happen. They're having this Jupiter Neptune moment of having the vision, and they feel it and they want it, and then they get there and it's like a fucking jungle. None of this is tamed. There might not even be gold, and they might have to try super hard. They might be in the Dust Bowl. There might not actually be food. The Indians are not, cooperating with them or whatever, and there's so much reality behind the situation. So not, embodying the vision, but also embodying the reality behind the vision is going to be so, so key. And I think, like you were saying, because if you are just embodying the vision, oftentimes it is another way of escaping. It is another way of not dealing with certain unmet needs that we might have. And so it's going to be important to be practical, especially in things that are tangible, like things related to your money, to your business, to dealings with others. You don't want to just believe everyone and take everything at face value. You want to trust your gut, have a practical plan, and move forward with optimism.
Definitely love what you just shared about the gold rush. I want to add kind of the Neptune faction to that. Let's say there is that person in Europe and they're coming to America for the gold rush, and that's the Jupiter Neptune thing. Oh my God, that's what we need to do. And there's an intuitive call. If you can get practical though, it's once someone is initiated, that's where the prosperity is for them, for whatever circumstances. That's where then spirit can guide you to changing things, because now you have not just created one. You might be that person might have been the part in your lineage that soul contracted to come to America that changed your future forever, and that their son found a way that make the railroad systems in America. I'm making it up, but the point is something inconceivable does come out of this vision that Jupiter wants to create. It is the great benefic. It's just making sure that you stay on the ground, that if you get a little bit of a reality check and accept the reality of things that are there and don't get too locked into it's got to look like a movie. It will be your own personal private movie to enjoy an exhaustible amount of information from. Just accept the parts that are not 100%. It might be 96% great. It might be 95% great, 98, 99 potentially. But
or the outcome is great, but the process is challenging.
Correct. That you get lost at sea 5 times, but you realize I'm going to go find the buried treasure, and it took you way longer than you thought. But then there could be a majestic story that if you found the treasure, you may not have gotten $100 million, but you got $15 million in the story of a lifetime that changes your children's future. There's something more soul offering here with Jupiter in Pisces, not like Sag or Aries, so to speak. But I'm also holding back from saying that Jupiter will enter Aries and will retrograde during this part, in that to bring forth what has been showing up within this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Which
we'll talk about in another video.
But I will just highlight that I really advise people, do not sleep and let this one pass. Do not think that you can't go for a gold rush in your life, but have a proper practical plan and have a
look at
real
that alliteration.
Boom. A practical essence to what you're connecting to, because this is a lotto ticket of a transit. I've also never seen all the planets forward. There's nothing in retrograde. Everything's moving fast AF. And to me, that traction is trying to catch wind, and this is like a rainbow staircase. Let's now look. You just said the fixed star is Malcab. The fixed star at 23 Pisces. It's the saddle of Pegasus.
Markov,
The Arabic fixed star for this conjunction. Mm-hmm. Is it as a saddle of Pegasus?
Mm-hmm.
That just adds to
Yeah.
how awesome that can be.
I do want to kind of add a disclaimer because a friend of mine the other day was like, the astrologers, they're saying all the planets are direct. So I feel this, like I don't know what I want to bring to life, but I know now is the time. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to kind of take some pressure off, because if you don't feel that the fruit is ripe for you personally, just because the planets are direct doesn't mean you have to have it all figured out. And Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces are all about just following your small little energetic jolts of inspiration that you experience. It's not about having it figured out. So just kind of follow the breadcrumbs with this one, and you'll get a lot of benefits from that trusting in the process.
I fully respect Courtney's ideologies and how she comes. I'm going to say something a little contrasting to that.
Oh, no.
When all the planets are forward, you have the best time. There's no pressure. So no one feels like it's the right time to go, because there's no essence of going. When everything goes retrograde is we're like, oh crap, like that's where I want to like go get things. And now I need them to manifest, and it's not manifesting the way I want. So the truth be told is like, I'm not trying to take pressure and add like, but I am also saying, and this is the new moon in Aries, there is a moment of like you in your soul, I guarantee got at least one idea of something that would be deeply fulfilling. And that road might be very different than you thought, but that there's something calling for you to walk and put on your hat, put on your boots, and take the first steps. Because, and this is if you're in my life karmically and they're watching this video, you can disagree with you. And I don't know what I want right now. Nothing's going to be perfect. That's the whole part of this. This is the whole thing with like the next new moon is going to be a solar eclipse in Taurus. It's not going to be perfect. But if you go plant a garden right now, you know that those seeds might bear fruit. You don't really know, but if you do all the things in essence to take care of it, you can wake up with a glorious garden that I promise, if someone that has this experience, things grow better than you could have put together. They just grow together in a natural, temperance, beautiful, harmonic way. But it is us just kind of go play. Go have fun. Go jump involved with your life and live your storybook versus sitting. I think
we're agreeing. I'm not dissuading from taking action, but I'm dissuading from putting an immense pressure on yourself that you need to know the outcome. Because I think a lot about what this is, like you're saying, is that essence of...
We can't, though.
Yeah. And especially with this placement. And a lot of this is like that essence of play, dabbling, inspiration, the things that feel good, rather than like that super Capricorn Saturnian energy of this is my 10-year plan. Still going back to what we said before, you want to have that practical essence behind what you're trying to go after, but allowing yourself the freedom and the space to also experiment and just have fun with this as well. So really quickly, I wanted to mention a few more things that can happen with this more on a mundane level. Floods, because all of this is water related. Everything going on is water related. Jupiter is going to expand upon that. So just water issues in general can become a thing. I don't know if like contaminated water, because Neptune can also be like contaminants and things, not being pure. And so that could also extend into contaminants of other things, but I would say specifically water. And then also like infection can be like, we can be more susceptible to infection and colds. Very
sensitive. It's sensitivities. Someone described it like the fish in the fishbowl can feel everything in the water kind of thing.
Yeah. So if we're, dropping antibiotics or some other kind of pesticide or something into the water, like we're going to be affected by it. And so that could be something that happens around this time. Is there anything else you want to say in terms of like the mundane level of things?
Mundane meaning the outside world?
Yeah, like on the world level, I think people maybe starting up more kind of charitable enterprises.
I was just gonna kind of think about that. I was thinking about like nonprofits,
Yeah.
or like, and people that might have never done a nonprofit can, like, you said, come to Jesus moments. That's where we might see something really beautiful for the world that gets created sometimes. Or you've done that creation yourself. I know we're having a lot of relief for Ukraine right now, and maybe some charity or something. But it's a very compassionate time, So there's just like a really, there you could a moment where everyone can realize we're all human and connect with a business or philanthropy, something being visionary created in these times of that essence. Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, this can be its own sort of creative revolution. So I think I was looking at in the history where the last Jupiter-Neptune conjunction Avatar was created. And there was a lot around Avatar being, a one-of-a-kind type of film. And so I think we can see that come out since Neptune is related to film and photography. We could see maybe more like styles or even advancements in that area in some capacity. So that is also potential to see on the worldview.
I would be calling this in, and myself included, is like creating music or art that is a little bit more holy, a little bit more spiritually forefront, a little bit more compassionate, a little bit of that tone.
Maybe
that's a little touching the heart. I would hope, but it would come out of like, sometimes that chaos that helps like brings certain artists to those like essential moments, those like deeper, the songs or the emotions that really permeate even people that connect to. It's like an artist where they were the catalyst of feeling emotions for a million people, kind of vibration.
Yeah. I love that. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to talk about this placement, Jupiter conjunct Neptune, in the houses. So basically what it's going to look like for each rising sign.
Boom.
So for Aries rising, Jupiter Neptune conjunctions in your 12th house, which is a very spiritual experience. It could feel almost like transcendental, where you might be able to tap into something that is so much bigger than you, and be able to surrender to some element of your life or your future unfolding that can feel almost like being guided by a parent or being taken care of by a higher, divine being.
I feel like this could be the most, is probably felt the most difficult for Aries rising. Just it's a 12th house, Pisces, whammo bammo. But feeling like, how did I get here? Feeling a little bit like lost. And this is collective. Sometimes I look at Aries rising, but you're kind of here for a divine purpose. And I think you're coming to God and coming to who you want to redesign yourself to be. And that's really big. And for all the trauma or stuff that has ever happened in your life, Aries rising, this is like your 12th house to like relinquish it, let it go. This is psychological purification and spiritual connection that, if given the grace to, you can really open up to some beautiful things. Yeah.
I love that. It's like a spiritual renewal, and we often have to lose ourselves to get to that place. Mm-hmm. Taurus rising, this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is in your 11th house of friendships. I want to talk about good stuff. The only negative thing I really want to say is just kind of be careful about the hive mind. Be careful about, people preaching a certain ideology, or even your friends telling you certain things. Like, just put a healthy dose of skepticism on your plate, because I think it is a little bit more of a potential to fall into, like gullibility or being deceived by people in some type of way. But let's talk about the positive stuff.
Yeah. Two different things. I mean, it's just, I look at the 11th house as, yes, friends, but it's also a place of like contributing. It's like where we bring our gifts out to the field and like almost like in the market, like, here's what I have to offer. And, something, being able to really contribute like you've never been able to contribute before, really being able to do something that touches your heart and like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Like, it's, I don't know if it's anyone that's ever worked a job and it was the first person that was like really grateful for the work you did, and you're like, wow, like, it's those moments that like I really was able to give back in such a way. it just might not happen exactly into the essence that you've imagined it to, but there's some calling vision there for you. And there's also planet placement 11th house of gains. It's just looking at how those gains are and looking at the legitimacy and the weight of their value to make sure it's of essence. Yeah.
And you can't go wrong when you are doing things for the good of others. Like that is when the gains will come. That's when the connections will come. That's when the friends will come, because it's coming from a selfless place, which this aspect really is asking us to bring to the table. Gemini rising. Okay.
Gemini rising.
This is exciting for you guys. Jupiter Neptune conjunction is happening in your 10th house of career. And so I think a lot of visionaries can come to the surface right now, where you might have a totally different, or maybe not totally different, but a really expansive, really exciting kind of idea of how you want to grow in your impact, in your general like life direction. Like it doesn't have to be just career. It's like, what objectives do you have? And how can you make those more spiritually guided, more intuitively guided, and inspiring to you? And so this could be a big time, essentially, to tap into some of your creative energy within that area of your life.
Gemini risings, I feel within your like proximity, you're being maybe called to go on a journey that more God is pulling you to look at. Maybe like, this is how I want to look in the world. And it's this very big status situation with the 10th house conjunction here, but it's also like reclaiming like who you might show up in the world might take a very different approach and like be more fulfilling than you thought was possible. But we want to recognize that this hits a place where our goals reach higher in the way that we thought we could touch and be close to God. And so there might be like a different kind of calling that can show up at this time. And I feel also just like, not only just like some of my visions and dreams are like really happening, but there's a change in the direction, I feel, as something. And so it didn't happen exactly as I had planned. And yet though, there's something of essence that I'm having deeper compassion for where I'm going to go and what I'm going to be able to create. So it's like a new journey that almost illuminates for you in the 10th house.
And more spiritually and emotionally fulfilling journey.
Amen.
Up next, we have Cancer rising, and this Jupiter-Neptune conjunction is in your 9th house. And so, I don't know, I feel like a lot of the people with this are going to be able to have this kind of vision of their life that maybe they weren't able to see before. And I think it's hopefully going to open up to more optimism within them, because I believe that these individuals are also having the Mars-Saturn conjunction in the 8th house. So that's a little bit challenging. And so I feel like this is kind of the reprieve from those challenges. Like, oh, I can breathe again. I can see that life is improving. I can see kind of what this was meant to teach me, and now how I can learn and grow from that experience. And so I think that this is going to be a time in which you are really spiritually supported to grow as an individual.
Cancer risings, and there's a lot of dear people in my life in Cancer rising, and I'm really getting the real sense of like, you're being able to see those emotional moments that really were a change at the attachments that you've made. In other words, you've been in this situation for a while. You've been connecting to this situation. Now we're like actually having to like, whoa, like come to God, or like a come to realizing things are changing. And so there's this real big moment for you in this 10th house new moon and 9th house conjunction. It's 8, 9, and 10 that are going off like crazy. It's really like readjusting who you found yourself to be in the world from something that happened. So it's almost like, I feel like something unpredictable, something's calling you, maybe a journey, or like maybe like a trip or something, but it almost is definitely going to be calling, like, I think you're going to have more of a piece of God than you got to really see or believe in potentially. And like, it should emotionally hit you in a way that makes you reconsider how things have been playing out and how you've been connecting to the world and see things for where they're like. So, definitely don't want your emotions to get the best of you in these situations. Allow some of that more essence of wisdom and benevolence that wants to come into your life really take you that you've been contributing more than you've given yourself credit for. that you can contribute and do many more things that you're allowed to open emotionally up to. So I'm like really seeing this kind of maybe even deeply fulfilling, if taken in the right hands, time for you to expand you like you never thought you could.
Boom. And Leo rising. Again, I will let you take this one away.
Oh boy. So Leo risings, you have this conjunction in the 8th house, and I've been experiencing this for a while. Connecting love and intimacy within God, and finding your true depths with God, and especially within our partnerships where we understand that to another essence. Usually it's in your deeper relationships, Leo rising, of where we're able to access this consciousness of where there are karmic relationships or people that are resonating, that are showing us the mirrors of who we can be. And if there's anything that's been psychological for you in the back of your mind, or negative attachments, these are getting washed out at a resolution, and like letting it go into the ocean and being washed hard. This is 8th house, Neptune and Jupiter. This is expanding of how deep we can go with our relationships to show us where we can reach to not only different essences outside of the exterior. This is an internal gift. This is even like magical within our relationships to see where we've been connecting ourselves to and receiving from. So either those you're going to see some deep rewards with, there might be a washing and a transformation that happens on a deep soul level. Some even karmic contracts that you've had for a long time, Leo rising, because we like to hold the fort for that 8th house in Pisces and connect with God, might really reveal a deep spiritual essence of how we've connected to people at all. So it's a beautiful time that I feel like with the 10th house, and this is like, who are we choosing to be in the world when we reflect on who we've been connecting with and what is coming to a resolution. This is where miracles in your relationships and miracles within what they're experiencing and what you're receiving at a high level. So take these. There's spiritual gifts. There's like mystical private scrolls that you're only going to get one time, Leo.
Yeah, I really love this. I think this is an extremely healing position. The 8th house being the house of drama and crisis and baggage and chaos, wounding, and literally just a lot of the difficulties that we hold on to protect ourselves, to have walls up, like, oh, that trauma, I lost that person in the past, or that person said this and this to me, and now I'm going to have this wall up, even that you might not be like fully aware of how much you're operating behind those walls. I feel like Jupiter Neptune here is coming to break those walls down, to heal you so that you can actually connect with true intimacy and not allow the past to influence what's happening today. And so I think it's going to be kind of like setting down a bag that's been super, super heavy, and you're finally released from some of those burdens from the past. So
amen.
I love that. I'm excited for you guys. Virgo rising, this is happening in your 7th house of relationships. So, okay, so again, kind of whenever it's involving other people, I'm like, and Neptune is there, I just want to say, like, don't get overly optimistic about people. Don't get overly optimistic. If someone is trying to sweep you off your feet, great, and go for it, but maybe also proceed with caution and with an understanding that the picture is not entirely clear. And so I think it's a time in which you're going to feel this unhindered bliss in relationships that you maybe have been desiring or craving. And along with that, the bliss can also bring some element of confusion or not actually seeing the reality of what it is. So it might not always be like this, but you can still enjoy that momentary ecstasy of whatever connection you are experiencing, whether that's with a close loved one, like a family member or a partner or whatever it is. And then also in terms of like contracts, because the 7th house is contracts, just make sure you're reading them over, but you could get like a good deal right now. Things could kind of work out in your favor, but make sure that you're reading also the fine print so that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into.
Mm-hmm. Virgo risings, it's It can be a very beautiful time where there's so many like wonderful relationships and things that are being created with people in your life. It's also just making sure we're not idealizing relationships that are not bringing us like the kind of reality that we're looking for, just to say. At the same time, with Jupiter in the 7th house, this is definitely repositioning or re-envisioning what that looks like. You know, there's so many other reasons, mystical and spiritual, of why these people have shown up in your life, to really realize the reflections within ourselves that can really help us repurge, clean the glass, and reposition how we see ourselves and reconnect back into the world. This North Node is in your 9th house. So this is a spiritual kind of engagement. This is a coming to recognizing of a higher essence than we've been able to create. And this is just something that also is going to be reinitiated within this new moon that's happening in your 8th house. So, you know, this is kind of like uncovering the hidden gems that have been there and removing any illusions to see the reality of where things are. And this is by God's hand. Something about Pisces being your 7th house is by God bringing these very mystical in essence. Look at dates. Look at like birthdays. Look at like the way things are even said and how they come out can really kind of wash away your old dimensions of how you've experienced relationships and really give you a new essence on how life can really be more than you've ever dreamed. So.
Aww. Libra rising. This conjunction with Jupiter and Neptune is happening in your 6th house of work. And I don't know. I actually really like this. I feel like it can, I mean, in terms of health, if it is kind of, it has a potential to be a little bit challenging for health, but it could also improve your health. It's like one of those things that can kind of go either way. It also can bring in some, you know, dream career opportunities or, you know, making you feel like you're finally able to grasp onto something in your daily routine that you've struggled with for years and years and years. Or, you know, I mean, it's not necessarily a planet that you think of associated with discipline, but in terms of knowing what's best for your soul and having spirit like help you achieve certain goals, I think it can help you develop better habits that way. And so I think that there's a lot of potential here for like a revitalization of your current responsibilities, your current daily routines, your current career opportunities, and feeling like, oh, things are working out, things are coming together. At least that's how I perceive it. What do you think?
This can be, I mean, in my opinion, it can be definitely a big reality check and also get you to recognize on what has to take place for you to have the reality you dream. We're looking at a flip position where like this Pisces energy is in the 6th house for Libra risings. You want the reality of the sunset margarita in this, like with the lover kind of vibe. That's like Libra risings, like Piscean visionary dream that we want a reality look like and be, you know, fresh cut, clean, and beautiful while doing it, I guess, is Libra rising, you know. But when we have this Neptune and Jupiter conjunction in the 6th house, make sure you're taking care of your health. Look at that. There's a big stem because it's also related to the relationships and to the people that are signified around in you on a spiritual level. So if you're taking care of that, you're going to be able to realize that like some things that you envisioned in your reality are not really the truth. Boom. At the same time, there are things that can come true if you allow yourself to make that pivot. This is just because we are also having the 8th house North Node and the 2nd house South Node in Scorpio. You know, there's a sense of like like deliverance, releasing. You might have worries upon money a little bit here, and recognizing that there's an art to being able to receive and connect with the people that really matter. Chiron's been in your 7th house with this new moon before the solar eclipse. So it's just making sure that you're connecting with the people that are holding this reality in check, you know? And so don't rose tint goggles this situation. At the same time, when there's moments where this reality can be very real for you, this is where you can touch your dreams. And I love that it's in the 6th house. It's just making sure that you have the physical reality to really look at this and really connect to that life you love and dream. You got the 5th house. You got Venus in the 5th house in Aquarius for this right around the conjunction. So yeah, I just think don't fool yourself. Get real about what's there, and you can have all that you've ever dreamed. Yeah.
And I think it could also play into mental health as well. You know, I will say to be very careful in terms of like substances and escapism. But if you are turning to any kind of spiritual tactics, it can vastly help you improve your mental health. So there's kind of like two different paths you can take, I feel like, with a lot of the sixth house stuff.
Definitely advise, and I wanted to share this upon what you were kind of sharing, is like, don't numb yourself to the reality that you're in. Like, look at it objectively. There's a form of spiritual acceptance that with this one will help you reconnect to the waters of what you want to dream. So like, you know, if it's just not looking at it, or avoidance with the sixth house, and like, because we have this Piscean escaping reality, making sure that it is something that is great and not just kind of for a quick fix. That's what I would really advise for this, and making sure it's real and of essence that you're receiving from the things and people you're connecting with. So
All right. And Scorpio rising, the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction takes place in your fifth house of creative visions and children. And I feel like this is one of the most inspirational placements for this, because the fifth house is already where we feel really inspired. Like, oh, this is what excites me. This is what feels like it's a part of me. Let me go do it. Let me go act on it like a child would. And now that Jupiter and Neptune are here, I feel like it's just giving this an extra spiritual oomph. And the fifth house is also such a positive house that can have the potential to grow into something substantial long term if we are dedicated and follow it with, you know, the practical elements. So I feel like a lot of these visions that can come to you now have that long-term potential and can feel really exciting.
yeah, Scorpio rising. This is your time that, you know, it's taking action on the people that are in your life. We got 4th, 5th, and 7th. This is your interpersonal life. You can't do it all by yourself. You got to recognize that you need great people. And by letting you charter, there's so much vision and beauty for the love life, for the creative visions. Your imagination could be on fire. I am born with Neptune in the 5th house, and there's an inexhaustible amount of inspiration to creating what you think is love. And so, like, you know, using that, it's also just like not glamorizing something to such a point that you're not really looking at self-love and internal love of what you can create. For those that have children, though, I also can see this being a point where your children are doing something that, or the children are being an inexhaustible form of inspiration that are really being able to touch you on a different level. There's something magical happening in that department, and giving that support, being able to open up to that. Sometimes this is just like love that literally can like wash you away, like just like heal your heart and heal what's possible to create with the world. So I think it's beautiful. Yeah.
Awesome. And then Sagittarius rising, this conjunction is happening in your 4th house of home and family. Do you want to start off with this one?
I can. I think with Sag rising, they're not realizing there's something about the past coming up that they have to recognize with their home. There's something with the home, something that's very emotional position potentially, but like there's something very much to like look at the rudiments. There's a hidden gift here within how you've connected with family, and you may or may not be fully initiating how you're going to respond with that. It's 3rd house. It's how you're interacting with this immediate environment. There's a shift on how we need to find purity in our physical reality and be able to network and connect with them. Within this, though, you might have some of the most beautiful people around you, then you might not be giving the credence or the ability to help or the ability to connect with in a new way. But there's something very precious that Jupiter's trying to enliven in your personal life. So, you know, we want to just look at like, what is there that we're not paying attention to? What is something that we need to have a repivot, and what's can come closer into our personal lives? Are we really allowing ourselves to like make the friends that we really could have that are right there? Are we interacting with things that make us feel good, you know? So like there's something there about home. There's something there about personal fulfillment, a vision for you to feel more fulfilled.
Yeah, and I think I know a Sagittarius rising who just moved, and I feel like a lot of this placement is also giving a blessing or the potential blessing for a sense of belonging. You know, how can I make this home a home? How can I create my family, even if it's not, you know, with family? How can I create my family? How can I feel like I'm connected to this land that I am living on? And so I think that you guys have a lot of potential there to be spiritually guided to do that, to make somewhere feel like it truly is home and you belong. All right.
The last tiny thing is like there's some karmic thing with the people that are around you in your proximity. There's something you haven't tapped on. There's hidden treasure there. Go seek it. You're a Sag rising.
All right. And then Capricorn, this conjunction's happening in your third house, Capricorn risings. So I feel like this is giving you the gift of new ideas, maybe things that you've never considered. And I think also, hopefully, surrendering a little bit of control, because Capricorns, I'm a Capricorn moon. There is some desire to kind of, you know, at least have control over ourselves and like our outcome. And that's why we plan, and that's why we want to have objectives and all these things, because that is some semblance of structure and control. And I think ultimately here, it's bringing in the ability to kind of let go, trust, and surrender in the way that we think about things, in the way that we talk about things, and maybe even the way that we act and like interact. It's coming from a place of I know I'm gonna be okay, so I think I can not have to have all the answers for this one. And so it might be a little bit of a 180 for people who are not used to that.
Yeah. You know, we made a personal video from just a little while ago, and you're looking, I think this is a perspective change. I think this is a huge thing where Capricorn risings get to like look at where they've been creating life and connecting with life, is definitely going to go through like this big perspective change that you're not realizing, like what's been around you this whole time is that there's so much more to connect with. The South Node's in 11th house, and this is happening in your third house. So it's like recognizing like the social groups that you've been connecting to that you think you need are definitely going through this big swap where I think waking up to some form of knowledge, some perspective of how you're being perceived or coming across might reinvigorate your value. Not to touch on it too much, but that Mars Saturn conjunction in your second house, you have so much value. You have so much to create beauty and shine up and open up your heart to creating and giving back. That's something you might not be able to look at how far and how deep that really is. So something about spiritual conversations for sure. Spiritual awareness wake-ups for sure.
Yeah.
Some like pineal gland blasts a little bit, like, you know.
Pineal activation.
Yeah, some of the, stuff like that.
I love that. And then Aquarius rising, this conjunction is happening in your second house of finances. I will say, when I see like Neptune transiting the second house, it can be a little bit challenging because the second house is the material world, and then Neptune likes to dissolve things. And so typically when I see this, I think of somebody who, I don't know, it's like they may need to look at their finances from a different perspective. So anyway, I don't necessarily, I'm not saying that it's bad. You can have like a miracle come where something just manifests out of nowhere financially. But there is also that potential of something being too good to be true, or money, because Jupiter expands things, money kind of being thrown at things, and you're not even like fully aware of where they're going, you know, like poor money management or like weird things coming up that can take your finances. But there can also be the opposite occurring of weird things coming up that can give you random finances. And so, it can definitely affect your material world. And also, I mean, the second house being about our self-worth, I think is really beautiful, because it is going to give you that kind of godlike way of looking at yourself, like through a lens of much more compassion and self-love and self-understanding and self-acceptance that I think you really deserve.
Aquarius rising. Yeah. Definitely stuff with finances, but it's also like a guided path on like where there's something coming up for you is like you're maybe not feeling fulfilled, and you've had some survival instinct and put that all into like creating work life, and that's built up for you, and you just know somewhere that there's some way I can create new wealth for myself. I don't really have it all figured out. Well, this is redefining how you create, but let's look at this, how valuable you have been all along. And this is repivoting how you can really look at that's creating that wealth. And you might feel connected or get lost into like needing to work to survive, and I don't know if this is all I'm worth, and that's not the truth. This is reawakening what you can have to live a little bit more, not necessarily luxury, but definitely like more fulfilled in how you create value. And it might connect to a more soul level, like, I have these gifts, I have these essence, I'm doing something better, and it's coming in through my finances, a second house of holding and having life in a way that is like tangible. And so, one thing though, there might be something that's being relinquished, something that you might, this is the position where I definitely don't want you to panic if something is like going away or you're not looking at an asset as it is, but it's like, there is also the gift of seeing that you owning your self-value, you can create more than you thought you could before. And that's like a big spiritual wake up on this one. So, yeah.
I love that. I think that also, if I'm not mistaken, I did a reading for Aquarius, or maybe it was Pisces rising, and that was like the message for them that some opportunity was lost, but then another one came into its place that was even better and gave them more potential to kind of make that something really financially successful. So if that happens for you guys, don't worry. All right. And the very last one is Pisces rising.
The piece de resistance.
What?
You never heard a French guy say that?
No, what is
The
that?
piece de resistance, it's like the cherry on top of like the sundae, the piece de resistance. Like, you never seen that?
No,
Please,
I'm
some French
so
guy
hungry.
they're gonna shred me up in the comments or something. God damn it. Whatever. You know what I mean. But
Yeah, I'm so hungry right now. Like that's all you had to say. I'm like, oh, food. Okay, let's
Venus,
finish this
Taurus.
up.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, really though. So yeah,
You wanna
this is in
start?
your first house with Jupiter and Neptune conjunct. So, I mean, you guys are just getting the most blessings from this because you just are. It's in your house of self. I feel like this is a time where spirit has come to uplift you in every way, help you see how incredible you are, maybe put potential miracles along your path, give you a lot of inspiration about what to do next. And these are your ruling planets. They're strong, they're coming together. And so I feel like it's fortifying you in some way that is really powerful. And hopefully you will feel the effects of this in your life.
Pisces rising, this is the strongest dignified rulership alignment that you will have in your lifetime, period. And what I will say that will come along with this is, and I know we've used this term a lot, but if you can grab a little bit underneath this, maybe having a genuine ego death on how you've wanted to be seen and looked at, and having a soul awakening on the real depths of how you've wanted to be looked at and seen all along. These are where like the facade of how we've wanted to be perceived within Neptune in the first house has to be dissolved to some level to reveal the magical essence that your soul is really here to create, and the real compassion that lies underneath, that you realize you've been a magician to a level that you might not be seeing for yourself. And with that gift can reawaken you to like what can be created, because then Jupiter will come into your second house to initiate that in Aries. And so these are the moments where like there's soul callings that are here. There's 12th house alignments, right? Waking you up that you've been signed up for these things a little bit. Like, the fish is definitely in the waters where it needs to be at the right time to see some big moments, and you've manifested them up to here. It's also knowing where you're going to be able to really drop in to being the person, to being seen in the magical light that you really desire is just going to take a new form than you thought in the beginning. So real excited for them personally.
Yeah.
It's a bigger gift than most.
Yeah, really, really, really big gift. You're like the kids who wake up on Christmas and all the other kids have these little wrap gifts and you have this like massive bicycle. And so
but it's going to look like, for the guys, like a Barbie playhouse, but it comes out to what you want, and for the girls it's going to be like, I don't know what's the worst nightmare for girls. Like, it's going to look like, I didn't want that, and then you rip off the wrapping paper. Oh my god.
It's exactly what I needed. Imagine
it's better
that.
than what I asked for. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I feel like it's a time of manifestation, not only externally in the world, but also around your identity. As Ricky was talking about, who am I? What am I here for? I don't want to say it's an existential crisis, because I feel like it's more of an awakening. It's more of a realization of your spiritual like power and why you even came here at this specific time in this specific place with your specific desires.
Yes.
And so I feel like you're going to awaken to that power, and you'll be able to use it for good. Like he said, when Jupiter moves into your second house, it's all about materializing it. And we'll talk about that later, but a really, really big time for you. And if you've wanted to open up to spiritual gifts that you feel like you've kind of had at arm's length, this could be a time in which you can dive into those, because you are being so, so supported. And is there anything else you want to say about Pisces rising?
I'm definitely seeing potentially an experience that just brings you to resolution of like, what do you really want to create and who do you want to be? And maybe, I don't know if it's like giving a gift or be doing something that you may not even thought of and woke up that you were this person, or like the dream of like, wow, I really created this. It like is a pinnacle, beautiful moment that's almost mesmerizing, hypnotic, so to speak. But I definitely got to let you know that it's more on the like soul level than it's going to be really just on the ego. But being seen in a way that you want to be seen is very much in your grasp right now too. So, I'm very excited and curious what comes out for them.
Yeah, if you have a Pisces rising, we would love to hear from you in the comments down below.
Send in the comments. I'd love to hear it.
Because this is a really, really life-changing, huge event. Yeah. This isn't going to happen. This conjunction of Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces specifically won't happen again until 2188.
Yep.
So I'm assuming we will not be alive.
We are not going to be here till they do some crazy stuff and put your head in a glass, okay? So
I don't know, Neuralink. I don't know.
Boom.
We'll see. But yeah, really big deal. So
not in this
life.
This
is very special for you guys. It's a gift in this lifetime for you guys. So that, I guess, is all we have to say, unless you want to say anything else, Ricky. I feel complete. So if you guys want to book an astrology reading with either Ricky or I, you can find the link for that in the description box below. Don't forget also to subscribe to Ricky's YouTube channel, Infinite Soul.
You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You can find my personal name on Facebook, Ricardo Zever. But down in the link below, my channel is called The Infinite Soul. Love to chat with you there.
I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Bye.
Bye.